Sign it. The heavy pen skidded across the polished table and hit the promissory note. $200,000. Around us, the Austin auction house went dead silent. Uncle Silas loomed over me, smelling of expensive scotch and cheap arrogance. You are a vet, right? He sneered, loud enough for the back row to hear. This useless pile of old meat suits you. Titan is your problem now. And so is the debt. I did not beg. I did not cry. I picked up the pen, looked him dead in the eye, and carved my signature into the paper. Before I tell you why that single signature ended up costing my uncle his entire billion-dollar empire, drop a comment below and let me know where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. The gavel banged, sealing my fate. I did not look at the crowd whispering behind their hands. I did not look at Uncle Silas, who was already high-fiving his drinking buddies, celebrating his cruelty like it was a business merger. Instead, I walked straight to the holding pen. My cousin Beatrice was already there, phone raised, live streaming to her 50,000 followers. And here she is, she narrated, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Our family charity case, taking home her new pet. Say hi, Clara. She shoved the phone in my face. I walked past her like she was a ghost. I did not give her the anger she wanted. I did not give her the tears she expected. I gave her absolutely nothing. My name is Clara. I am 26 years old, and I am the only licensed large animal veterinarian in a family that treats livestock like poker chips. For 10 years, I have kept their ranch running while they played dress-up in the manor. I know every acre of this land. I know the bloodlines of every calf. And I knew exactly what I was looking at in that pen. Titan. That was his name on the manifest. To the auctioneer. To Silas. To the laughing crowd. He was just an old, limping bull, with graying hide and tired eyes. A bad investment. A joke. But as I unlatched the gate, I saw what they missed. I saw the width of his chest. I saw the intelligence in his dark eyes. I saw a lineage that went back 100 years. A genetic masterpiece hidden under layers of neglect. He snorted as I approached, dipping his massive head. Most handlers would have used a prod. I just held out my hand. He smelled my palm, recognized the scent of someone who actually works for a living, and let me clip the lead rope to his halter. Enjoy your steak, Beatrice called out as I led him toward the loading dock. The crowd chuckled. I kept walking, my boots thudding rhythmically against the concrete floor. Outside, the Texas sun was blinding. A long, black limousine was waiting at the curb, engine idling. Uncle Silas, Aunt Marion, and Beatrice piled in, popping a bottle of champagne before the doors even closed. They were off to celebrate my humiliation at a 5-star steakhouse. I led Titan to my rusted pickup truck. The suspension groaned as I lowered the ramp. He walked up slowly, trusting me. I secured the gate and looked through the slats at him. They think you are useless, I whispered, resting my forehead against the warm metal of the trailer. They think you are just a debt they hung around my neck. But I know who you are. I climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. It coughed twice before turning over. As I pulled out of the lot, leaving the luxury cars and the laughter behind, I did not feel fear. I felt a strange, cold calm. They thought they had buried me in debt. They did not realize they had just handed me the weapon that would end them. The truck rattled over the cattle guard and onto the property. I did not turn left toward the main house, the sprawling Victorian mansion with its wraparound porches and manicured lawns. That was their world. I turned right, down a rutted dirt track that led to the old equipment barn. My home was a converted tack room attached to the back. 2 rooms, a leaking roof, and a view of the manure pile. It was fitting. Really, I was the spare part of this family, stored away with the rusted tractors and broken plows. I backed the trailer up to the chute. Titan moved heavy and slow, his hooves clacking against the wood. I got him settled in the main stall with fresh straw, clean water, and a flake of the good alfalfa hay I hid from Silas. He ate greedily, starving for something other than the cheap filler they fed the auction lots. I sat on an overturned bucket, watching him chew. The silence of the barn was heavy, filled with the dust of a decade. 10 years. That is how long I have been the invisible backbone of this ranch. While Silas was betting on horses in Kentucky, I was here pulling calves in the freezing mud. While Beatrice was finding herself in Europe on the family dime, I was managing outbreaks of pink eye and fixing fences until my hands bled. They call me the charity case. They say they took me in when my parents died. But the truth is, I paid for my room and board 1,000 times over in sweat and unpaid labor. I saved this herd from drought, from disease, from Silas's own incompetence. And today, I saved one more. People ask why I stay. Why I do not just pack a bag and leave them to rot in their own mess. It is a fair question, and sitting there in the dim light, Watching a $200,000 mistake eat my hay, I finally understood the answer. It is the trap of the decent person. There is a specific kind of cruelty that targets people who care. Silas knows I cannot walk away from a suffering animal. He knows I cannot let a fence stay broken or a trough go dry. He weaponized my own conscience against me. He knew I would sign that paper not because I am stupid, but because I am the only one here who understands the weight of a life. He thinks my empathy is a weakness. He thinks my need to fix broken things makes me a servant. He counts on it. He banks on the fact that I will always step in to clean up the mess he makes, because I cannot bear to see the land suffer. But looking at Titan, seeing the power rippling under that scarred hide, I realized something else. Being the one who carries the load does not just make you tired. It makes you strong. It makes you essential. Silas thinks he dumped a burden on me. He does not realize that by forcing me to take responsibility for the only thing on this ranch that actually matters, he just handed me the keys to the kingdom. I reached out and touched Titan's flank. The skin was warm and rough. "You are not a burden," I whispered into the dusty air. "You are the beginning." The summons came at 8 in the morning. A text message from Beatrice. 3 words long. "Dad wants you." No, please, no details. Just a command from the big house to the servants' quarters. I washed the barn grit off my hands, changed my shirt, and walked up the gravel drive to the main estate. The morning sun hit the white pillars of the mansion, making it gleam like a pearl in the dust. It was beautiful, impressive, and completely hollow. I found Uncle Silas in the library. He was wearing a silk robe, and despite the early hour, he was already nursing a crystal tumbler of amber liquid. The room smelled of old paper and expensive scotch. On the Persian rug near his feet, a dark stain was spreading, a spilled drink he had not bothered to clean up. It was a small detail, but it told me everything. He did not care about preserving this house. He only cared about owning it. He did not turn around when I entered. He was staring out the window at the south pastures, where the morning mist was still clinging to the grass. "You know, Clara," he said, his voice thick with satisfaction, "I never liked the smell of cows. It clings to everything. Even you." I stood near the door, keeping my distance. "You wanted to see me, Silas?" He turned then, a smile playing on his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "I wanted to give you a heads up. Consider it a family courtesy. You have 30 days. 30 days for what? To get out." He took a slow sip of his drink. "You, your truck, and that $200,000 hamburger you bought yesterday. I want it all gone. I am clearing out the trash, Clara. I am sanitizing this property." My pulse spiked, but I kept my face blank. "You cannot evict me. I have rights to the tenant quarters. I have a contract." "Had," he corrected. "That contract was contingent on your employment as the ranch veterinarian. And as of this morning, your position is terminated. We do not need a vet anymore. In fact, we do not need the herd anymore." He walked over to his massive oak desk and picked up a rolled document, tapping it against his palm. "I am pivoting, Clara. Modernizing. Why spend my life waiting for grass to grow and cows to breed, when there is real wealth right under our feet? We are entering a new era. An era where I do not have to get my boots dirty to make millions." I looked at the document in his hand. It wasn't a blueprint for a barn or a feed order. It looked legal. Dense. "You are selling the herd?" I asked, testing him. "I am liquidating everything that moves, eats, or smells." He laughed. "And that includes you. You were a necessary evil when we needed to keep the livestock alive to maintain the agricultural tax exemptions. But now? Now I have something better." He walked closer, invading my personal space, the smell of alcohol overpowering. "You have 30 days to pay off that note you signed, or I will garnish whatever wages you manage to scrape together at some petting zoo, and get off my land. If I see you or that bull here on the 1st of the month, I will have the sheriff shoot the animal and drag you out by your hair." I looked at the stain on the rug again. Then I looked at the rolled document in his hand. He was too confident. Silas was a gambler, and gamblers only gloat like this when they think they have a royal flush. He wasn't just kicking me out. He was clearing the board for something else. "Understood," I said calmly. His smile faltered. He wanted me to scream. He wanted me to beg for more time, for mercy. I turned and walked out of the library, leaving him alone with his scotch and his secrets. He thought he had just delivered a death sentence. He didn't realize he had just given me the first clue. He was done with ranching. He was talking about wealth under his feet. Silas wasn't farming. He was digging. And I was going to find out exactly what he was looking for. I drove straight to the south pasture. Silas had been staring out the window at this specific stretch of land, and I wanted to know why. The grass here was tall, swaying in the wind, but as I walked the fence line, I found what I was looking for. Fresh tire tracks cut through the mud. Heavy treads, Too wide for a pickup, too narrow for a tractor. And there, driven deep into the soil near the creek bed, was a wooden stake topped with neon orange flagging tape. Survey markers. I pulled the stake out of the ground. It felt heavy in my hand, like a warning shot. Silas wasn't planning to sell the herd to buy better stock. He wasn't pivoting to agriculture. He was preparing to gut the land itself. I didn't go back to the barn. I drove straight to the county clerk's office in Austin. I didn't waste time with online portals or phone calls. I walked up to the counter, gave the clerk the parcel number for the estate, and asked for the most recent filings. 10 minutes later, I was holding a certified copy of a deed addendum filed 3 days ago. One glance at the document confirmed it. Silas hadn't sold the land. That would have been too loud, too public. He had done something far more insidious. He had severed the estate in half, not vertically, but horizontally. He had sold the mineral rights. Most people look at a ranch and see the grass, the fences, the water. They see the surface. But in Texas, the land is a layer cake, and the law allows you to slice it up. The surface rights, the part where the cows graze and the house stands, are just the crust. The mineral rights are the filling. And under Texas law, the mineral estate is dominant. That means the owner of the minerals has the right to use as much of the surface as reasonably necessary to extract what is underneath. Silas had sold the drilling rights to a shell company called Petro Vanguard for an immediate cash injection of $5 million. He kept the surface deed, the mansion, and the prestige of being a landowner, but he had sold the soul of the ranch. I stared at the signature on the bottom of the page. It was a death warrant for the estate. Once those drills started, the water table would be at risk. The pastures would be crisscrossed with access roads and pipelines. The noise would drive the wildlife away. The ranch would technically still belong to the family, but it would be a hollow shell, a toxic industrial zone masquerading as a home. This was the trap of surface rights. It is the oldest con in the book for desperate landowners. You sell the invisible wealth below your feet to pay for the visible luxuries above ground. You think you are being clever, eating your cake and having it too, but you are just signing a lease for your own destruction. Silas thought he was modernizing. In reality, he was cannibalizing the legacy he claimed to protect. I flipped to the back page. There was a clause about immediate access. They were scheduled to break ground in 2 weeks. My hands didn't shake. The anger that had been simmering in my gut cooled into something hard and sharp. Silas thought I was just a vet with a grudge. He didn't realize that by filing this document, he had left a paper trail of his own incompetence. He had acted as the sole trustee, signing away assets that belonged to the trust, not to him personally. He thought he was the king selling off the crown jewels. But he forgot one thing. A king needs a crown. And thanks to a 100-year-old bylaw he had never bothered to read, the crown didn't belong to him anymore. I folded the document and slid it into my bag. It sat there next to the promissory note for Titan. 2 pieces of paper. One was a debt I couldn't pay. The other was the evidence that would hang him. I had the gun. Now I just needed to wait for him to walk in front of the bullet. I walked back into the lion's den, with the certified copy of the deed burning a hole in my bag. The sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the porch where Uncle Silas sat. He was holding court with Aunt Marion and Beatrice, laughing over a spread of hors d'oeuvres that cost more than my annual feed budget. They stopped laughing when I stepped onto the veranda. Beatrice rolled her eyes, reaching for her phone to record whatever humiliation she thought was coming. Silas didn't even stand up. He just swirled the ice in his glass, looking at me with bored contempt. Back again? Silas sneered. Save your breath. The decision's final. I said nothing. I dropped the paperwork in front of him so hard the silverware rattled. You didn't just sell cattle, I said. You sold the mineral rights. $5 million. To a drilling company. Aunt Marion gasped. Beatrice froze mid-scroll. Silas only smiled. He skimmed the document like it bored him. You went to the clerk. Cute. But trustees manage assets, however they choose. I am the trust. Then he flicked open a lighter and set the document on fire. We watched it shrivel into ash. You have no standing, he said. No money, no power. Then he dialed 911. Sheriff? I have an intruder. Sirens wailed minutes later. Sheriff Miller told me to leave. Silas demanded I be arrested. I braced for cuffs until 3 black SUVs rolled up the drive. Great Aunt Eleanor stepped out, frail but furious. She sent the police away with 2 words. Family meeting. Silas sputtered excuses. She waved in a lawyer, who opened a portfolio and read one devastating clause from the 1,920 trust charter. Whoever owns the herd's alpha sire controls the entire estate. Silas scoffed until I spoke a single word. Titan. The bull Silas bought and forced me to take registered descendant of the founder's line. The alpha sire. And legally transferred into my name yesterday. The lawyer confirmed it. I now controlled the trust land, money, mineral rights, everything. Silas collapsed, his face chalk white. I gave him his own countdown. 30 minutes. Keys on the counter. Then get out. He ran. The drilling deal? Voidable. My consent was required. We would stop it in court. Eleanor handed me a final document. A brand new living trust. Assets moved into my control immediately, no challenge possible. When the last taillights faded down the road, I found Titan grazing under the moonlight. The bull they dismissed had saved everything. Some inherit power. Others fight for it. Sometimes the thing they use to break you is the very thing that crowns you.